never knew, understand all this and that. Even today they recite. One of the Brahmin lady next to my home, they said, I'll teach you Sanskrit. I said, it's a nice occasion, I'll teach you Sanskrit. So I said, say, recite this, recited that. What is the meaning? Meaning you should not ask. It's only recitation. What do I do with this recitation? Now that is the Vedas. I should know what I am reciting. So no, the less you know, it is better. You see, the idea of religion is it is far away from you, and you cannot anywhere reach nearby because we are all sinner, very ordinary human beings. Only some people will have access, and they will interpret that religion to us, and we should humbly accept the words of these human beings. You see? Now all that is simply gone. But in 19th century India, all these were coming back. You know, in Europe, in 18th, 19th century, at that time there was, before that, what do you call this revolution, Reformation, Counter-Reformation, Protestant Reformation, and so on. Europe was one, the all Catholic Church, Holy Roman Catholic Church, and the Pope was at the top of it, and whatever the Pope says will be believed. But in the modern times, that broke up, and it became several churches, and the one Latin language became many languages, and people start reading the Bible and so on. As I said, democratization of religion started taking place. But in our country, religion was many earlier, before modern times. There were many religions. Many ways of understanding divine, many ways of appreciating the sacred and the gods. But 19th century saw all of them were put together in one basket and one framework called Hinduism. All these are Hinduism. Even today, the definition of Hinduism is the Hindu is one who is not a Christian, who is not a Muslim. The rest are all Hindus. So what do you have is a residual idea. What is not this, everything is to be called Hindu. Now that is not the only usage. Simultaneously they say, whatever is in India is Hindu. Hindustan, Hindu. Okay? This is geographical sense. Another was residual sense, minus sense. Minus Hindu, Christian, minus Islam, Muslim, they are Hindus. But there is also another sense in which Hinduism is used. Hindu is one who accepts the Vedas and who practices Varna. You know, these three usages are mixed up with one another and constantly will be interplayed. Hindu is one, everybody is here is Hindu. Okay. That means everybody is here believes in Vedas. The Hindus believe in Vedas. We have seen this now already. Hindus believe in Vedas. Who are the Hindus? Hindus are minus Christians, minus Christians, minus Islam, Muslim people don't believe in Vedas. No, Hindus believe in Vedas. No? We also say that. No, we also constantly say Hindus. Which Hindu believes in Vedas? Who are these Hindus you are talking about? Is it? And immediately implicit inside that will be Hindus are caste people. Caste. They abide by caste, accept and abide by caste. This is a prescriptive or normative understanding of Hinduism. Hinduism means it should be that. Is it? So there are three meanings already I identified through which we will be playing with one another. One was, the geographical was articulated first by Savarkar. Any fool who is living in this country is a Hindu. Why? That is not bad at least. Because Savarkar had never used to go to any temple or anything. He used to be a rationalist. Said when his wife died, all these Pandas and Brahmins came. He said, you have to shave your head and all that. He said, look, I am so feeling sorrowful for my death. Don't bring all this. No, we will boycott you and all that. Then he started taking a stick. He said, you fellows are running throw them out. But he insisted, every fellow is here. Any man who goes to mosque or who goes to temple or goes to church, or anyone who doesn't go anywhere. All these are Hindus. Geographical sense. You see? The legal sense is minus Hindus, Muslims and Christians. But then the more dangerous sense was this normative sense, prescriptive sense. Hindus means you should be like this. And this was unfortunately very elaborately explained by Mr. Gandhi. Mr. Gandhi. There are so much of propaganda, there is so much of wrong things about going on in this country about Gandhi. I think we all should read original Gandhi occasionally. We will be producing some more books on Gandhi. Gandhi is Varna Vyavastha. He said, if you say you are a Hindu, how can you say that you don't believe in Veda or don't practice Varna? A subtle way of imposing, an hierarchical order. Religion in modernity, as we explained, is basically a democratic religion. The struggle with Islam is democratization. How do you democratize Islam, particularly with regard to women and so on and so forth? Now, is there only one version of democratization, Western version, or there could be other versions of democratization, Arabic version, Indian version? That's a question to be discussed. But democratization one should do. Every religion should be democratized. That is why conversion is a must. Conversion not necessarily from one religion to another religion, but from one form of religion to another form of religion. You cannot simply practice my ancestors were doing this and doing this, I am doing that only. Why you do that or don't do that, I am not bothered. But you have to accept everybody else as your fellow human beings. You cannot ask some people to stand outside, you cannot ask some people to come inside, and after that you go and do this or whatever you do, nothing will work. That is not a religion at all. You see? That is why Baba Saheb Ambedkar's definition is a negative definition. He said, you say you are a religious person, you should have equality, fraternity and liberty. After that, you go to temple or you go to church, you go to mosque, anywhere, that is each one's problem, and some cannot go anywhere. That is their problem. But if to call anything by the name of religion, this is absolutely necessary, you practice that. And the context I am explaining is that in 19th century, all these things which were sort of being against democratization was coming into practice in the name of religion. In the name of religion, and it came with the power of nationalism. Nationalism. You see, my dear friends, nationalism, some of the topic I talked to you last time about that, but we need to talk 100 times more about nationalism in order to understand how the foundational ideology of this Indian society has been ulta, topsy-turvy. And that is where most of the things have started. See, if you say, what is a nation? Nation means a group of individuals, citizens. Nation is composed of citizens only. And citizens don't make any difference from one another. You are a citizen, I am a citizen, period, nothing else. As far as the state is concerned, we two are citizens with no difference between each other. But if you still say, I am different, you are a Brahmin, I am a Bangi, and this and that, and we call this nation, and we call the father of the nation, then I tell you, cannot be a worse disaster than this. He said, he said, last century wrote father of the nation is a Gandhi. But then what will new historiographers, what should we be writing? The father of Indian nation is Baba Saheb. Please, for those aspirants to IAS, UPSC and so on, when you are asked who is the father of the nation, have the courage to say father of the nation is Baba Saheb Ambedkar. And if you miss that examination and lose it, you should be proud of that. I was dismissed from this place because I was answered rightly. Because you cannot have a nation with caste. And precisely the attempt was to have the caste and the nation. You see? And the whole package came in the name of religion, Hindu religion. You see, this is what one should not have as a religion in modernity. And that was what against Baba Saheb was fighting. You see? No, I will answer because otherwise I might fail. But after retirement, I will do some work. You see, this is a very, very sad situation. I do not know how to opt out of it. Many of us also do that. In the academics also we do that. We say so one thing and then we believe in something else. We become a really split personality. Religion should be integrating people, not splitting groups and so on. This is the very, very final test, and that is where Baba Saheb was attacking. And he felt that unless a religious change takes place in humanity, and that was the context was in which religion was brought to the public, and the religion was, a new religion was being formed, and that religion was called Hinduism, and that religion was called as a Sanatan religion, developing from centuries and centuries, and that is the right thing. No, it was not developing century after century. It was discovered by the British people and constructed it. And ever since the Vedas came, only English only people started reading. Before that, nobody has heard of this. You see, today, for example, 7.5% of people are tribals, who are not heard of caste, not Hindus or Vedas and so on. 300 years ago, there must have been at least 25% of people who have never heard of this. Some 500 years ago, most of the people were tribal people. We never knew what is what and all. They had nothing to do with Hindus. But it is a Sanatan. Hinduism is a Sanatan for whom? Is it eternal for whom? You see? People write, in India, people are Hindus and they recite Gayatri Mantra. Who is reciting Gayatri Mantra? How do we subtly make this majority into Hindus and make the Hindus recite Gayatri Mantra? Majority people, majority space in political life, and so we are all minorities. We accept minority factors. Is it? No. The whole reconstruction of religion that took place in modernity, we should denounce this. We should never accept this minority status or majority status. Who is majority? You are talking about dominance and suppression. You are not talking about numerical majority or minority. One social scientist writes, Dalits, OBC, women, handicapped on the one side, and the majority Hindus on the other side. What nonsense is this? If all these are minus, where is there are some handful of people on this side. What they mean by majority is dominance, elite. Let us, in ordinary day-to-day essay, and then let us also not grant spirituality. There is no spirituality, it is only rituality. Rituality should not be confused with spirituality. My dear friend Kancha Ailaya sometimes speaks about spiritual fascism. I told Kancha, let us not use spiritual for this. Spiritual is about internal, about mind, about heart, and your mind and heart being there. And that is available only in the Brahmanic tradition. It's an internal religion, it is called. Brahmanic tradition is called external religion, external rituality. And rituality has no place in modernity. Rituality has no place in modernity. For example, the sacred group of people in this country are the Brahmins. This is far from the fact. Nothing to do. The sacredness has nothing to do with the Brahmins. If there are some sacredness, it is in a small little, when people's religions we have, there is some kind of sense of divine, some kind of, awe and all that. This is, for example, Periyar used to say, there are two groups who know God doesn't exist. One group is a self-respecting group, self-respecters, Dravidian movement. The other group is the Brahmins. They are very close to this God, they know He doesn't exist. But then, this existence is very useful for him. That is okay. Beginning with that, the Baba Saheb's attempt is to reconstruct a religion that will include democratic ideas, ideas of justice, and with that he has sort of put the whole thing together. This is where it is. People who want to go further into Christian religion, into Islam and all that is okay. But all those religions also will have to change. You see, they cannot say some 2000-year-old practices or religion, we have been following that. The whole attempt is religion is above history. What doesn't change is religion. What changes is non-religion. This is really wrong. This is totally wrong, and that is what Baba Sahib Ambedkar challenged. As the times change, everything keeps changing. Everything keeps changing. It's a human being that reconstruct, and in today's world, absolute equality, democracy constitutes the very central element of religion, recognized as the potential divine in each one of us. Each one of us. I recognize you as my citizen and fellow citizen simply because you are also capable of becoming another God like I also should become. See? Now, after that, you may be going to the temple, I may be going to the church. That's a different question on that. But what happens is, progressively we feel, the moment we have a fellowship of a community of, like Shanti Chakra is an initial attempt to produce a community. If this attempt extends to a little other areas of human life, then he said God is in the midst of us. God is here. Where else one goes for looking for God? This is the way even the Christians, wherever four or five of you are gathered in my name, there I am present. You don't have to look for something else. Look for something else. This has been one of my problems with Buddhism created as another religion. You see, Buddhism is like a leaven, no? Like a fermenting, what you put in a ferment, put in a dough, the entire dough becomes fermented. The whole religious life of people should change. There is a way of being a Buddhist Christian, there is a way of being a Buddhist Islam, there is a way of being a Buddhist, even a Hindu if you can say that. Because you have inscribed, you have embedded, you have put inside the basic values of Buddha, that is democracy. Basic value of Buddha is democracy. You have put in, yeah, my tradition is the Christian tradition, I go to church. And then I begin to look at Christ also. This is a huge, great person who sacrificed his life for humanity. Some call him God. Yeah, call him God if you want. In our own country, God means very many things. For a mass of people, God means somebody who has done most good for the other human beings. You know, this is even children are called gods, no, in our languages. This is Sami, this is Sami. You know, it's a pure innocence. And then father is dead and his photo is there. He has become Swami. He has become God. You know, he gave birth to me and nurtured me and so on. So he is my God. Beyond that, what do I know about anything else? You see? Now, all that original meanings, which were very, very prevalent among the ordinary common people, we are now finding these are the most modern ways of thinking. You see, what we have very great struggle reading books and discussion and so on, coming to which ideas? The ideas we find among the ordinary people who have been suppressed for such a long time. And this is the whole thing which Baba Sahib was trying to express according to his own time through his language and idiom, which we will have to sort of understand and then carry it forward and create our own constructions of how to practice equality and democracy in a different ways and so on. Now, some of these concerns I have been working on many of the authors who have been in the modern times. The whole group whom we call people's intellectuals, organic intellectuals was called, beginning with Jyotiba Phule, Ayodhya-dasa, Lakshmi Narasu, Baba Sahib. This group is not somebody genius emerged one corner of the world. No. It is a long and a deep tradition within our Indian history, culture, and what you call ethos. You see? And this has been propping up. And if you realize, it has been propping up everywhere. Not only in Maharashtra, not only in Tamil Nadu, not only in some parts. Entire subcontinent has been proliferating this kind of groups, indicating that religion in India originally has been only this: rational, humane and compassion. It is in between certain things took place and we got ourselves distorted, And all our effort now is to retrieve what has been lost. One of the greatest attempts has been by Lakshmi Narasu garu. So I'm very happy to meet a grandson of Lakshmi Narasu garu. He is here. And it was accident. I brought some books by Lakshmi Narasu's last manuscript, Religion of the Modern Buddhist. I found it mentioned in one of the obscure manuscript. So I followed that, and finally found the manuscript was with Vasant Moon, who edited Baba Saheb's works. You know, he was a very old man, and he was more or less sort of, given up hope on life. And I said, what this man is going to understand. So I tried to tell him, Vasant Moonji, there was somebody called Lakshmi Narasu before Baba Saheb, and there are people in Madras had given to him a manuscript when Baba Saheb went to Madras. Immediately the old man started shedding tears. He said, you know how many times I wanted to dispose of that manuscript, because I am unable to work even on Baba Saheb's work alone. When am I going to? He had typed 6-7 pages of that manuscript, couldn't find because no health and all that. See, it is there. Could you please take it before I die? You know, he said, please take it, please take it. I want to see you taking it. I took it with great difficulty, pieced together. I tell you, you have in Lakshmi Narasu garu somebody fantastic. In today's standards, English, writing, and the man who went through this, he said, I couldn't put my pen into that at all. It was so tightly, neatly written. At that time, when there was no computer, at that time there was no kind of reference work and all that. Small pieces of paper cut and pasted in a place where it should be inserted beautifully. And then I found a curious thing in that manuscript, underlinings by red pencil and blue pencil. Some of you might remember, in those olden days offices, there will be double-sided pencils. One side blue and another side red. Obviously, Baba Saheb's notings in that. Okay. So finally, I managed to bring that book and then gave it back to Vasant Moon. He was still alive. He said, yes, it's come. So he received that. Within a week's time, he died. See? The whole attempt of Narasu garu is to, if you have a different way of life, religion in modernity, modern Buddhist is a thing, you have to pay for it. You have to pay for it. If you don't pay for it, that means you are not living a counter. You are not living a religious life. You are running like a, the worldly life, like anybody else you are doing. You are not doing cross-current swimming. So this is we are trying to excavate more and more. Something more will hopefully come. I have brought a few copies for people who are interested in. I had also intended this session to be a more interactive session. It's not one-way talking, because in social matters, the speaker doesn't speak something which is not known. It is not biotechnology or it is not nuclear physics, where I have a piece of chalk and then keep on writing, and all the students very furiously take down. I already speak to people who have plenty of ideas on the same things. And so they are ready with their files. Let us see what this man is going to say. And some of you would be obviously, Acha, this man is this type. Because you understand this man more than what actually he is saying. All of you are with files, so I have tried to put in some matters. Now your files you should accept or reject it. Rejection is a sign that thinking process is on. I hope this will be on. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Before we go for the question and answer session, there's an announcement. There will be you are all aware about the DICCI, Dalit Indian Chamber of Commerce and Industry. The second general body meeting is going to be held on the 18th of this month, Friday, at Hotel Taj Dakkan from morning 10 a.m. to evening 5 a.m. We have a seminar. In that seminar, we will be discussing about the opportunities and obstacles for SC/ST entrepreneurs. for which we have invited both the Justice Ministers, Geeta Reddy as well as Prasad Kumar, and also we have invited all the concerned government officers related to the industrial promotion in government of Andhra Pradesh. And that we are going to place a PowerPoint presentation that what are the existing opportunities for SC/ST entrepreneurs and in which way it is obstruction, it has become an obstruction for the SC/ST entrepreneurs. So this point we are going to place before the concerned officers in the presence of the ministers so that some viable solution may be taken out for the solving the problems of SC/ST entrepreneurs. So now I request each one of you to refer this matter to the people who are known to you, who are already doing the business. The entry is only restricted to the existing business people and the entrepreneurs. So if anybody to whom you know that they are already into the business and they are already running a industrial unit, you please recommend, inform them that there is such and such seminar is going on that day, and the entry fees is we have fixed at 1,000 rupees on the registration. So any first qualification is you should be the entrepreneur, and the second is the registration fees. They have to pay 1,000 rupees for the entire day because there will be a morning tea and snacks and lunch and that's a 5-star hotel, you know. Because we have made it a point that every meeting, every delegate has to pay the minimum of his expenses so that it will not be a burden to anybody. That's why we have fixed it that as 1,000 rupees as a registration fees. So kindly inform each and everybody. And another thing, on 27th next week we are going to have next week మనకు రెండు సందర్భాలు వస్తున్నాయి. ఒకటి మన శ్యామ్ సుందర్ గారి వర్ధంతి 19వ తారీఖు నాడు వస్తుంది. అదేవిధంగా భాగ్యరెడ్డి వర్మ గారి జయంతి కూడా జరుగుతుంది. కాబట్టి ఈ రెండింటిని కూడా పురస్కరించుకొని ఈ సండే నాడు దళిత వైతాళికులు అనేటటువంటి టాపిక్ని మనం తీసుకొని ఈ ఇద్దరు మహానుభావుల యొక్క గురించి ప్రొఫెసర్ సుధారాణి ఆంధ్రప్రదేశ్ ఓపెన్ యూనివర్సిటీ నుంచి ఉన్నటువంటి ప్రొఫెసర్ గారు ఆ సబ్జెక్ట్స్ పైన ఈ 20th నాడు మాట్లాడడం జరుగుతుంది. అదేవిధంగా 27th నాడు మనకు పిఎస్ఎన్ మూర్తి గారి యొక్క ఏదైతే మన అంబేద్కర్ వాల్యూమ్స్ మీద మాట్లాడుతున్నారో అది 3rd టైం లాస్ట్ మంత్ మనం చేయలేకపోయినాం. సో ఈసారి యాజ్
what is Karma Siddhanta, then I will be able to because in modern times there have been a number of attempts of various kinds. Many of them are spurious, some of them are semi-spurious. It is very difficult. If I understand by Karma Siddhanta this and what has that to do, then I may be able to proceed.
Is a philosophy introduced by the Hindus, again to borrow a phrase from Aloysius.
What I find, I take it. This is basically Brahmanic. In whatever form it comes, whatever form it comes. It comes, you know, as he is saying, Karma Siddhanta, it comes in number of newer ways also. You see, for example, in modern times, caste is called eco-friendly. Have you heard this? Actually, many of our brothers and sisters they are reading these texts in universities. You see, there is a village. There is a Brahmin, maybe Kshatriya, and some Vaisyas and Harijans and all that. Now the Dalits are told they should not go near water. Why? If everybody don't go near water, the water will naturally remain pure.